Hey everybody, welcome as we journey back into Streets of New Capenna. We have a ton of cards to go over that have released over the weekend and a little bit of an update for today. Remember, they're going to reveal these cards all the way through the 15th, so I'm going to go over each of them, give you my blind reaction, and hear from you guys what you think are good cards versus which cards you think are falling flat. We start today with our white cards, Angelic Observer, which is a 6 mana Angel Advisor 3/3 with flying, it being an angel. The ability is this spell costs 1 less to cast for each citizen you control. We've seen a little bit of citizen synergy with the Cabaretti family, and I believe some with the Obscura family, but I think that the broker family, I don't know if I've seen a lot for that citizen-wise, but it's nice to see some citizen synergy because angels tend to synergize with humans. So now we're seeing that they synergize a bit with the citizens. We also have the Ballroom Brawlers, which are a 5 mana 3/5 human warrior that says that whenever this card attacks, Ballroom Brawlers and up to one other target creature you control both gain your choice of first strike or lifelink until the end of the turn. Since it's not each one, I guess this would read that both of them get the same ability. So they either both get first strike or they both gain lifelink until the end of the turn is how I'm reading this. Which is still fine. First strike is, of course, very beneficial in an aggressive way. Lifelink if you're playing somewhat defensively. So it's nice that this can kind of play either way. If it combos with the right card, this ends up being, I feel like this ends up being really good. A 3/5 for 5 mana is a bit lackluster, even if they gave this card by itself lifelink or first strike. So it definitely, I feel like definitely needs a combo with other cards you have on the board, which you can expect to happen with the Cabaretti family, but really if you play with any family, I have to imagine you play the Ballroom Brawlers, especially since it's a 5 mana card, you're playing it at least on turn 5. So the idea here would be that you play it when you already have another card. Next up is Buy Your Silence, a 5 mana sorcery. It says exile target non-land permanent, its controller creates a treasure token. So you're paying off their silence by, here's your treasure token, but there goes your card. It can't be a land, which is nice. It's always nice that people can't target the lands on the board. That's a low ball, so I like that this ends up targeting something else. But it can be anything else. It can be an enchantment, it can be an artifact, it can be a creature. Whatever it is you need to remove, no matter what, it's only costing you a treasure token. I think that's a steal of a deal. Next up, we have Depopulate, which without even reading the effect, is a great way to, I feel like a nice way of saying, get out of here. So this is a 4 mana card, sorcery. Each player who controls a multicolored creature draws a card. Then, destroy all creatures. I love that it's like, if you all have a multicolored creature, don't worry, everybody draw a card. Everybody draw a card. It's a good card. Everybody likes this card. Alright, now everybody dies. Everybody's gone. Get out of here. Party's over. So, this is a good card, and of course it's always nice to see board wipes in standard play, and I think that this is a good enough card to run in a commander deck as well. They have great board wipes in that. But really in Commander, the more board wipes you have, the better. So it's good to see that card, and what an adequately named card, really. Next we have Extraction Specialist, a 3 mana human rogue. It's a 3/2 with lifelink. It also says that when it enters the battlefield, return target creature with a mana value of 2 or less from your graveyard to the battlefield. That creature cannot attack or block for as long as you control Extraction Specialist. I mean, that's nice. Especially with the image, you can see that the idea that they're going for is that the reason why that person cannot attack is because it's being saved or extracted by your specialist here. So getting them out of a deadly situation, which is already proven to be deadly for these people. I think a 3 mana 3/2 is lifelink, and it brings something back. Odds are it's bringing something back with an effect that you care about. So I can see this card seems to be pretty good for the mana value you're paying for. I want to see some really cool combos with what this card is bringing back, but especially something that comes back with a passive ability or another when it enters the battlefield ability. I could see a lot of that really working for you and for this card too, as long as it's maybe it brings back something that like buffs this card or makes it unblockable or something along those lines. So I definitely think this is a good card. Looking at it, it just doesn't seem like a great card. So it's kind of, I'm on the fence about it. I just think that it's really thematic, and that makes the card even better for me. This set has already made me more excited because every card seems to go with their theme, and the names of the cards seem to be pretty on theme as well. So it gives you an idea of what the effect of the card is going to be, while also being like, oh, I guess that would be something that they need, kind of deal. So an extraction specialist would make sense. Maybe they're extracting you because you just got taken by the mysterious limousine. You know, so either way though, I definitely think this card is really good. Next, we have the Illuminator Virtuoso. 2 mana, 1/1 human rogue. It has double strike, and whenever it becomes the target of a spell you control, it connives. Which again, connives is you draw a card, discard a card, and if you discard a non-land card that way, you get to give a +1/+1 counter to the creature that was conniving. So I like it. This guy definitely seems mysterious, which makes sense with the name we're given. Using some, looks like magical daggers, probably buffed up with the halo. A 1/1 double strike isn't exciting, but with it giving itself +1/+1 counters, that double strike becomes nastier the more he becomes conniving. I think it mixes really well. So overall, an okay card. 2 mana, 1/1 double strike is not exciting. That's still, even with double strike, it being a 1/1 should be a 1 mana thing, but it's that conniving that really gets it going. So you've got to make sure you're targeting this with spells, otherwise it's not really going to go anywhere for you. Or you buff it up through other abilities, even if it's not through its own ability. The goal here is to get this creature to have more power. And the toughness doesn't even matter. You really just have to buff up its power, because keep in mind, double strike, if it kills your opponent's creatures, and then there's no damage happening to it, it can have a 1 toughness. All that matters is that 1 toughness. It doesn't die till it becomes 0. Next, we have the Mage's Attendant. A 3 mana, 3/2 cat rogue that whenever it enters the battlefield, you create a 1/1 blue wizard creature token that has the ability for 1 mana, sacrifice a creature and counter target non-creature spell unless its controller pays 1 mana. Yeah, I mean, it's not exciting. I think it really just makes more sense if it was creating more 1/1s. Countering someone else's spell unless they pay a mana. I mean, they're almost always going to have a mana. You really only do this for the big stuff that your opponents are feeling really good about, that they tap out for. So I'm not sure that this is stopping a whole lot of things from happening. And you have to sacrifice this creature, and you're also paying a mana. So you had to leave a mana floating. You're losing your 3/2 you paid 3 mana for. You did have a 1/1 blue wizard creature token that you have. You know what? It's the 1/1 token that you're losing, though. So, I mean, it does help. You're not losing your 3/2. I don't know. If you did have to pay a mana, I guess maybe I'd be more on board with it. But, you know what? Maybe this does stop some stuff. You stop anything that they tap out for. I can see that. It's just a matter of you're leaving a mana open, you're losing your 1/1 token, and you're probably not countering the spell that your opponents are playing. That's where I'm at with it. So it's nice to have another token, and a 3 mana 3/2 is what you're going to be left with after you do that. So that's pretty good. The next card I want to talk about is Raffians Guidance, which is a 1 mana, so it's a white mana, enchantment aura. You enchant a creature with this. Enchanted creature gets +1/+1, and you may cast Raffians Guidance from your graveyard by paying 3 mana rather than paying its mana cost. So it's a +1/+1 that's never really going away, and every time it leaves, you're guiding someone else. That's really cool. I'm just not a big fan of enchantments that only do +1/+1. I know that this combos well with Coven. This combos really well with the double strike stuff we've seen. But I think it also modifies something, which combos well with the Kamigawa set we just saw. I just think it does better than, you can do better than a +1/+1 buff. So it's an okay card. It's not bad. 1 mana, 1/1, and then also you can keep pulling it back for more mana. That's okay. Next is Raffians Informant, which is a 2 mana human wizard, a 2/1 that when it enters the battlefield, it connives. So it could be a 2 mana 3/2 if you discard a non-land card. 2 mana 3/2 is pretty good. A 2 mana 2/1 is not really all that great, so it almost has to connive. It doesn't have any other abilities, so it's not using double strike or first strike or life. It has nothing else going for it. So I think really this is just it would combo if it's a human and it's a wizard. So if you're using one of those creature subtypes to actually do something, like it combos well with something tribal, then that's great. But I think all in all, even with after it connives, the +1/+1 counter isn't quite enough to make it all that great. It's a 2-mana 3/2 that does nothing else. So you pretty much have to blink it in and back, out and back in again, so you can keep getting the inner battlefield effect. But every time it leaves the battlefield, the +1/+1 counters go away. So we're gonna move to our next one, which is Refuse to Yield. A 2-mana instant. Target creature gets +2/+7 until the end of the turn. Untap it. That's pretty good, and it's very defensive, and it does a very good job at stopping it from having taken any sort of lethal damage. If you play on the right card, there are cards that the card from the Dungeons and Dragons set where you give target creature -13/-13. If you play your cards right, even this might be able to help make your creature survive. So yeah, I like that. And then also, of course, the untapping it is always nice. So you could, in even a defensive situation where your opponent is attacking you because you attacked with all your creatures, and they're like, oh yeah, you can't stop me from attacking, you 2-mana out this instant. Like, actually, this card here is going to go ahead and, after having attacked you, is now going to stand back up, and it's going to defend. It's going to defend me. Also, it's a +2/+7 in addition to whatever else it had. So this card is really good. I like it. And I always love instant speed cards. They really throw a wrench in a lot of plans. Alright, that ends all of our white cards. That's going to move us to our blue ones. And we're going to start that off with All-Seeing Arbiter. A 6-mana 5/4 avatar, which we haven't seen a lot of these. It's a flying creature that when this enters the battlefield or it attacks, draw 2 cards and then discard 1 card. And then its other abilities, whenever you discard a card, target creature an opponent controls gets -X, -0 until your next turn. X being the number of different mana values among cards in your graveyard. So this incentivizes a good mana distribution in your deck because I have a 1-mana card, a 2-mana card, a 3-mana card, 4-mana card, all the way up. By the time you play this is maybe turn 6, it's a 6-mana card. So by this point you could have 5 different cards, mana values that naturally got to your graveyard from the battlefield. Not to mention the fact that this card lets you discard a card from your hand. That could be a 7 or an 8-mana card. It doesn't have to be one that you've actually gotten to play, and it's gotten into your graveyard. So this is a good way to be able to debuff one of your opponent's cards, and it's really good if you're planning on being on the offensive for that turn. A 6-mana 5/4 with flying that lets you draw 2, discard 1 is already not bad. That other ability just kind of buffs it up a bit more and incentivizes you playing this when you're ready to make an aggressive play. Next you have Cut Your Losses, another 6-mana card, very thematic. It has Casualty 2, again, this is where you sacrifice a creature with a power, in this case, 2 or greater. Do that and you get to play the spell again. And you can choose new targets. And of course it's for free, it's a copy. The ability of this card is, target player mills half their library, rounded down. So imagine just copying this card with Casualty 2. Of course, it's only half and then half again, so it's not like, oh, there goes your whole library. You know, it's not like you're doubling it. But what you are doing is you're halving and then you can have someone else's. This is great in Commander. In a modern game, it's a standard game, still not bad. You're halving your opponent's library and then halving it again. But in a Commander situation, you've got more than one opponent. Your copy isn't targeting the same person. Odds are you're playing Cut Your Losses, and it's like, you're going to mill half your deck. You're going to mill half your deck. And all for 6 mana. It's a really good card. And of course it combos well with a lot of mill stuff for milling decks. And of course if you need to mill yourself, it kind of combos with All-Seeing Arbiter. I think it's a little overkill, but you can mill half your own deck, and then at that point, who knows how many different mana values you have in your graveyard. Think of the value. So Cut Your Losses is a good card. I think it's best played against your opponents. But hey, there's some synergy with yourself. It's there. Alright, next is Echo Inspector. For 4 mana, it's a 2/3 flying bird rogue. When it enters the battlefield, it also connives. So, it could be a 4 mana 3/4 with flying. That's not bad for 3 mana, and flying is worth it. I mean, that's a good enough ability. So, it's worth running in a flying deck, because most flying decks buff your other flying cards, so long as you're playing it right. Rogue decks tend to work if a creature wasn't blocked. Don't forget you have like ninjutsu from your like Kamigawa set. And then, even if you're not thinking about Kamigawa, rogues tend to, when this card deals damage to your opponent, when another rogue deals damage to an opponent, that player mills that much of their library. So they take 3 damage, they mill 3 cards. So rogues tend to go well with mill decks. So I'm just saying, buff it up, mill your opponents. Alright, next we have Errant Street Artist, a 1 mana, so it's a blue, legendary human rogue. It's a 0/3 with flash, it has defender, and it has haste. So, why haste? Its other ability is a 2 mana tap it, copy target spell you control that wasn't cast. You may choose new targets for the copy. So this would be a copy of a copy, because you're not casting spells that you copy. So I imagine this being like when you use casualty, you copy a spell. You copy a spell, and you choose new targets for that copy. Okay, so the Street Artist would then let you tap 2 mana, tap it, and copy this copy, because you didn't cast that. So you can't copy the original spell, but you can copy the copy you made of that spell, because it is a spell on the stack that you didn't have to cast. So, multiple copies. That seems good for 1 mana. And it has haste, so you can 1 mana flash it in. That way you can use its tap ability. Otherwise, Summoning Sickness you wouldn't be able to. So, it makes the haste make sense. And the flash can be done on your opponent's turn, or flash can be used to play this at instant speed to put this creature also on the stack, so there's already spells you're planning on copying one of. So, if you play this right, you do some big brain moves, I think that this works really well. I really feel bad if you're copying cut your losses because you have 3 opponents, and now that it's like, oh, you thought you weren't milling your deck also. You all are. So, it works. I like that a lot, especially with it being a Street Artist, because I can imagine it being a con situation. So, I like that. Next, we move on to Fairy Vandal, a 2 mana, 1/2, flying, and flash. Whenever you draw your second card each turn, put a +1/+1 counter on Fairy Vandal. That's pretty good, and especially with flash, because it can flash in and defend. So that's really good. Again, this is a rogue, and fairy rogues are pretty common. So I think that they're kind of leaning into ninjutsu and milling decks with the blues here, because blue has always been good at milling. Rogues have always been good at milling, and flying is always really good with ninjutsu. So, and also Kamigawa has some rogue synergy. I'll admit, not a lot. It was mostly for the ninjutsu, so it was mostly for the ninjas and the rogues that were ninjutsuing in. But blue-black, Demir, can happen. Next is the Hypnotic Grifter, a 1 mana 1/2 human rogue that for 3 mana he can connive. So it's just always buffing himself up. Draw a card, discard a card. It helps cycle out it's better than the freaking blood tokens we got in Innistrad, Crimson Vow. And because you're getting a +1/+1 counter on a creature in addition to drawing a card, discarding a card. That being said, for 3 mana seems a bit hefty, but he's a rogue and he's a human. So my guess is he's meant to synergize with other cards that the stronger he gets, the stronger your deck gets. So in that way, I can see this being really good. On its own though, 3 mana to connive, I think that's a bit pricey for our connive ability. So you need to be synergizing this with something else to where when you buff this card, something cool is going to happen. Alright, next is a very thematic card. Make Disappear. 2 mana with casualty 1, counter target spell unless its controller pays 2 mana. Normally I don't like the countering unless the opponent pays 2 mana type thing, but with casualty 1, you sacrifice one of your 1/1 tokens, and it's like, we're going to play this, I'm going to counter your spell, and I'm going to do casualty, copy it, I'm going to counter the same spell or another spell on the stack. So you can't, first they have to pay the 2 mana to stop Make Disappear from happening once, and then another 2 mana to stop their card from disappearing again. So that's really good. And I love how, of course, you think Make Disappear is a, like, oh, like, we're just not going to see him ever again. We're not going to see this person ever again. But what we have here in the image is, no, literally there's a shadow where a human used to be. So that's pretty good. Next is the Obscura Initiate, a 3 mana 2/2 bird citizen with flying. For 2 mana, one must be white or black. It gains lifelink until the end of the turn. We know that there's some citizen synergy with the angels, and this having flying, there's a lot of things that synergize well with flying creatures, and it being a bird. There's some synergies with birds that's mostly in Commander at this point in Modern. Not so much Standard as far as I can recall, but there's some synergy there. So I think that this isn't a terrible card. it having flying is always a good buff to have. I just think maybe it's a little on the weaker side, and I don't think there's enough synergy, so that citizen synergy is going to have to be pretty strong for this set, because that's the one I'm really looking at, especially for standard. The next card is Out of the Way. 4 mana instant. This spell costs 2 colorless mana less to cast if it targets a green permanent. Return target non-land permanent an opponent controls to its owner's hand and draw a card. So if you're targeting a green permanent, it's a 2 mana card. Get this thing out of the way. A 4 mana card otherwise. 4 mana, return a non-land permanent to its owner's hand and draw a card. You know, I definitely think that that's a little pricey. So I can see it being really good if you're targeting green. There's a couple reasons why it would be good to pay 4 mana for it, regardless. For one, you're drawing a card, and we just saw that there are cards that synergize with the second card you draw in a turn. It can be played defensively, and it can also be used for if your opponent controls a card that you own. So it's a good way to return that card to its owner's hand, being your hand. So it's a good way to get someone who betrayed you back. Alright, next is Psionic Snoop. A 3 mana 0/3 human rogue with flash, and when it enters the battlefield, it connives. So it could be a 3 mana 1/4. That's a good defensive card. I don't think that it's a rogue, and it's a human. Again, there's synergy there, and I definitely think that that's what they're banking on here, but unless I'm missing something. Flash is good, because again, you do get to play it defensively. And I know that the connive is also comboing well with the second card you draw in a turn. Flash allows you to do this on your opponent's turn, so you can draw a card on their turn. And the more things you can do that with, if you can draw 2 cards on your opponent's turn, then you're going to trigger the effects that say the second card you draw in a turn. It's generic for a reason. You can do it on your opponent's turns if you play your cards right and trigger these abilities before you even have to take your own turn. So I see that synergy. I'd want to see it in action to know if that's going to be really good. But other than that, it's 3 mana, essentially 1/4 with flash. So all that, just looking at that, not a very strong card. So it really does need that synergy. Next is a Psychic Pickpocket for 5 mana. It's a 3/2 Cephalid Rogue. When Psychic Pickpocket enters the battlefield, it connives. And when it connives this way, return up to 1 target non-land permanent to its owner's hand. So it could be a 5 mana 4/3 return target non-land permanent to its owner's hand, which is that part is a 2 mana thing. So if we look at it that way, this is a 3 mana 4/3. That's pretty good. So it's pretty valuable, and you're drawing a card, discarding a card. So the connive ability is just going to have a lot of synergy for this to make a lot of sense. Again, this one doesn't have flash, so you're playing on your turn. It is a rogue, and again, there is rogue synergy. So depending on the decks that are built out of here, I can see this being good. Next is Public Enemy, a 3 mana enchantment aura. You enchant a creature. All creatures attack enchanted creature's controller each combat if able, and when the enchanted creature dies, draw a card. I like that. I also especially like this in Commander format, where for 3 mana, you're looking at one of your opponents who people are scared to attack, but you know if everyone threw everything they had, because that would be dumb for them to do, but if they did, well, they could really weaken my one opponent here that's a threat at this time. So 3 mana, and you're like, yeah, you're Public Enemy number 1. So, and that makes it to where all the families unite against you. I like it. That's like you're calling in some favors. I like it. So in Commander format, this works really well. The only way otherwise that this works in a 1v1 setting is if you enchant a creature, like one of your own creatures. So that way you're forcing your opponent to swing all out. But it's risky for that because it's never fun for you to have everyone attack you. So in a 1v1 situation, it still can be a good card, but it requires a lot more thinking for that to play out the way you want it to play out. Next is Rooftop Nuisance. A 3 mana sorcery with casualty 1. Tap target creature, it doesn't untap during its controller's next untap step and draw a card. It's a sorcery, so it must be played on your turn. And the art in this card just reminds me a bit of Lion King. I've been watching that a lot lately, and this is him on a ledge, and it's a whole thing. But aside from that, 3 mana, tap target creature, and it doesn't untap during its controller's next untap step, draw a card. The casualty letting you copy it, so you're drawing your second card on your turn. Well, I guess your third card, because you did draw 4 turn. So it's alright, and it is a nuisance. I can definitely see that. Next one is Security Bypass for 2 mana. You enchant a creature, and as long as the enchanted creature is attacking alone, it cannot be blocked, and the enchanted creature has the effect that whenever this creature deals combat damage to a player, it connives. So you're buffing up your own card, drawing a card, discarding a card, and this also combos well with the rogues, where the rogues are having you mill your opponents. So if this does well, then I can see it working that way. Also, ninjutsu is a thing to consider here. Problem is the enchantment is destroyed at that point. All the counters you're doing on your creature are also gone at that point. So worth noting though, it does at least guarantee a ninjutsu if it's worth the extra 2 mana to guarantee it. But I think there are better ways to do that. But this is a good card for mill decks. Next is a card that I know Eric is going to love. The name is very thematic. Is Sleep with the Fishes. A 4-mana enchantment aura. You enchant a creature, and when this enters the battlefield, tap enchanted creature, and you create a 1/1 blue fish creature token that cannot be blocked, and the enchanted creature doesn't untap during its controller's untap step. So they're not dead, which is I think what really should be implied with Sleep with Fishes, but they're quite literally sleeping with the fishes. I think it's a little too on point, but I love it. So it's hard for me to say that this is good or bad because I have to run this card if I can because I want to make your creature sleep with the fishes. I love it. Alright, the last one that we're going to go over for blue is Witness Protection, a 1-mana enchantment aura. The enchanted creature loses all abilities and is a green and white citizen creature with base power and toughness 1/1, and the name of the card becomes Legitimate Business Person. I absolutely love that so much. It's like it just reminds me of that meme of like a regular salad for a regular man. This is just no need to look in this direction, no need to look at the man behind the curtain. You know, so it's just really good. I like it. I mean, you're doing it to your opponent's stuff probably though, so it's really a debuff. So you're really just letting them have a good laugh, but it's also like, yeah, you're like big giant creature that you have, or making me sad since I run off Eldrazi. So your Eldrazi lord is actually a legitimate business person. Anyway, really good, love it. That moves us over to black, and I can already see that these are going to have some pretty interesting names here. First one we're going to start with is Body Launderer, a 4-mana 3/3 ogre rogue with death touch that whenever another non-token creature you control dies, he connives, and whenever he dies, return another target non-rogue creature card with an equal or lesser power from your graveyard to the battlefield. I mean, he's a big guy, but is he hiding shit in his body, or are you finding stuff because he died? Either way, I'm a fan. So the more he connives, the stronger he gets. And just talking about it like from an actual mechanical standpoint, though this is very on point for the themes that I would expect, I definitely think that this card is going to pull something big, because it really is every time another non-token creature you control dies, you'll probably have that happen. And so as long as he survives those hits, the stronger he gets, the stronger the card that comes back when he dies is going to be. Alright, next we have Cemetery Tampering, which is a very nice way to word that. A 3-mana enchantment with Hideaway 5. This allows you to, again, look at the top, in this case, 5 cards in your library. Put one of them exiled face down, which you can always look at but no one else gets to know about. The rest go on the bottom of your library in a random order. So the idea here being that you found something and you're hiding it somewhere that no one should be looking. At the beginning of your upkeep, you may mill 3 cards, and then if there are 20 or more cards in your graveyard, you may play the exiled card without paying its mana cost. Fair enough. So you mill yourself enough, and you can just, for free, get out the thing you hid away. Probably because at that point, there are too many bodies to bury, and it's time to go ahead and get your little stash and get out. Alright, I like that card. Next up, very fitting to follow up the card we just talked about, the next one is Dig Up the Body. A 3-mana instant with casualty 1. Mill 2 cards, and then you may return a creature from your graveyard to your hand. So also keep in mind that casualty, you're copying it. So 3 mana, play it. Also sacrifice a creature with power 1 or greater to pull a stronger one to your hand. So it works really well, especially since it's only casualty 1. So I can definitely see that being really good. And I love the theme of these cards because the next one, again, is just right on point. Graveyard Shift. A 5 mana sorcery. This spell has flash as long as there are 5 or more mana values among cards in your graveyard, which is really good for a self-mill deck, and I'm starting to see that blue-black combo. I may have been joking earlier about milling half your own deck, but I'm kind of thinking that's what they want you to do. Among other people milling, you know? And you know what? All you're doing is speeding up the game. If everyone's milling half their deck, then are you really milling your deck? Really? Alright, so, you know, when everyone's a super, no one will be. Alright, but what else does it do besides that? Return target creature card from your graveyard to the battlefield. We're used to seeing that with 5 mana, and we're used to that being a sorcery with Dig Up the Grave, I think it's called. This is a 5 mana card that can have flash, which is even better than sorcery. And this can be after you've milled enough of your... Like, it's flash when you need it to be. It says it's flash as long as there are 5 or more mana values among cards in your graveyard. That's probably a good time to play this card anyways. You probably want to hold on to this for that point and be like, yeah, I've got enough mana values where I'm going to pull up my 9 mana, whatever, you know. My Eldrazi in my case, or like a Kraken in some other people's cases. Next up, we have Grizzly Sigil, a 1 mana card. It's a sorcery with casualty 1. Choose target creature or planeswalker. If it was dealt non-combat damage this turn, this deals 3 damage to it, and you gain 3 life. Otherwise, it deals 1 damage to it, and you gain 1 life. For 1 mana, dealing 1 damage and gaining 1 life is pretty good. For 1 mana, sacrifice a creature of probably a 1/1 token. 1 mana, sacrifice a 1/1 token and deal 2 damage and gain 2 life. Also seems pretty good. Especially against certain decks that are flooding the board with a bunch of little tokens you don't like. But really, what you're wanting to do is you're wanting to deal non-combat damage to whatever target you need to take care of. Play this for 1 mana, sacrifice a creature of power 1 or greater, and if you do this right, that means you're dealing 6 additional damage to that card, and you're getting 6 life, all for 1 mana and the price of a 1/1 token that you didn't like anyways. I like it. The next card is Elicit Shipment for 5 mana. It is a sorcery. Casualty 3. Search your library for a card, put it into your hand, and then shuffle. So it's tutor that can happen twice. So it's 1 extra mana than what you'd expect for a tutor. It has casualty 3, so you do also have to sacrifice a creature of power 3 or greater. But if you can meet those requirements, you're searching for 2 cards. Now in any format, but especially Commander, but in any format, usually a combo that is going to win you the game is 2 cards. So for 5 mana, you sacrifice a power 3 or greater creature on your side of the board, and you should be pulling your game-winning combo to your hand. I'd say that's worth it. You don't have to worry about drawing the combo when you draw Illicit Shipment. Alright, so next up we have Join the Maestros. Well, let's see how they convince you to join. For 5 mana and casualty 2, you get to create a 4/3 black ogre warrior creature token. So for 5 mana, you sacrifice one of your creatures of power 2 or greater, and you can get 2 4/3s. Seems good. For 5 mana, you're getting a stat value of 8/6, and you're sacrificing a creature of power 2. Usually if it's power 2, your toughness on the high end that you're expecting to lose is 3. So you're losing probably maybe a 2/3, hopefully a 2/2, or really hopefully a 2/1. But say you're losing a 2/3, so you're losing that off the stats. If we think about it that way, you're losing it, it's an 8/6, so it's a 6/3 in the worst case scenario for 5 mana. Yeah, so you really need to do a 2/2. I think you really have to do a 2/2 for that to make sense. So, not a 2/3, but that's the way you're going to join the Maestros. Next is the Maestros Initiate. For 3 mana, it is a 3/1 human citizen that for 5 mana, one of which must be blue or red, you exile this card from your graveyard to draw 2 cards, and then you discard a card. So 3 mana 3/1 isn't great, and a 5 mana exile it from your graveyard, draw 2, discard 1, also not great. Yeah, I mean, it's a human and it's a citizen. There may be some synergy there. So unless there's synergy there, though, I think this card's not great. I mean, he is an initiate, I get that, but he's not even useful to you dead, really. So next up, we have Revel Rooner. For 4 mana, he's a 3/1 Cephalid Rogue again, with Menace, and that whenever this enters the battlefield, it connives. So it's a 4 mana 4/2 with Menace. That's not bad, and it's a rogue. So again, you want to combo some, like when a rogue you control deals combat damage to a player, they mill that many cards. So they're milling 4 cards. that's pretty good. And this is a great way to speed up that kind of thing. So if you can get some rogue synergy, this is a way to go. Next up is Shadow of Mortality. Technically, this card is 15 mana, 13 colorless, and 2 black. It's a 7/7 avatar that if your life total is less than your starting life total, this spell costs X less to cast, X being the difference. So in Commander, you start off with 40 life, say you're down to 20, then this is 2 mana. You only have to have lost 13 life. We'll say in Modern or in Standard, you're starting with 20 life, so you want to be at, what, 7 life and play a 7/7? I don't think so. Nuh-uh! Yeah, I think that this needs to be a 2 mana 7/7 to really get the value you're looking for, which makes me feel like this is a great Commander card, not so great Modern card, but hey, we'll see. I'd love to see the combos. Maybe some people are like, you know what, I'll take a 7 mana 7/7, but it doesn't do anything else, and it doesn't even have flying. 7 mana 7/7 that does nothing else is not really good. A 5 mana 7/7 I could see, but even in that case, you have to be at 10 health. So, alright, next is the Shakedown Heavy for 3 mana. He's a 6/4 Ogre Warrior, definitely dressed up to be a Rifteer. So he's a 6/4 with Menace, and whenever he attacks, the defending player may have you draw a card, and if they do, you can untap him and remove him from combat. So it's like, he's definitely the, you want me to draw a card, or you want me to mess you up? I like it. A 6/4 Menace, because he's menacing. I like that. So it's like, I could draw a card, that's all I want to do. I just want to draw a card. I'm just out here drawing a card. I want to draw a card. You want me to draw a card. We're on the same page here. We're friends. Or are we? Like, I just love that little subtle tone of, like, it just is very thematic for the set they're going for. And they use the right keywords, the right names, and the art on this is amazing. I mean, this ogre is just kind of like looking at something else while he's holding on to what appears to be a torn off hoof or something. So it's really, I like it. It's very thematic. Our last one for black, and that is Vampire Scrivener. It's a 5 mana 2/2 Vampire Warlock. We haven't seen a lot of the vampires. It is a 2/2 flying. When you gain life during your turn, put a +1/+1 counter on this creature. And whenever you lose life during your turn, put a +1/+1 counter. So it's like, it's a win-win. I see this as an absolute win. I lost life, I gain life, whatever it is, I buff this card up. So it's a 5 mana 2/2 with flying. What we're really looking for this to be is a 5 mana 5/5 with flying makes this really good. So you need 3 +1/+1 counters on the card. But it is a vampire, odds are you're gaining life. And it's a warlock, odds are you're losing life in the deck, you're running a warlock. So, and it's got the right color scheme, because in a black deck, or at least one that splashes in that, then yeah, you're going to lose life, because that's what they do. Lose life, draw cards. Lose life, deal damage. So, it works out. That moves us to our red. We start with Arcane Bombardment, a 6 mana enchantment. This is a mythic rare. Whenever you cast your first instant or sorcery spell each turn, exile an instant or sorcery card at random from your graveyard. Then you copy each card that has been exiled with Arcane Bombardment, and you may cast any number of the copies without paying their mana cost. So every single time you cast a spell, you're exiling another one, but you're also casting everything it's exiled. I mean, it is huge. I mean, you only need to copy one really good spell. But every single time, this is an enchantment that your opponents have to get rid of. This, especially in red, where odds are if you're exiling a card, it's a damage spell. That's what you're exiling. I mean, there's a reason why this card is showing you a bunch of fire spells coming out of it. I mean, odds are, even if it's just a mono red deck, I'm exiling a card that is dealing a ton of damage. So that seems pretty good. You're not exiling anything with an X mana cost, which is a downside for red, but you're exiling cards that deal damage to creatures or planeswalkers or players. And if you splash this in with black, then you're exiling cards that destroy things. If you're exiling white, then you're gaining life and creating tokens. I mean, there's not a situation where you're exiling a spell that your opponent's like, oh yeah, I'm fine with you casting that for free. Yeah, because free spells are bad. So, next up, to deal with this problem, we call in a professional. For 3 mana, it's an instant. Players can't gain life this turn, and damage cannot be prevented this turn. Call in a professional, deals 3 damage to any target. That seems like a good card to copy. I mean, not that I know anything that would copy spells, but man, if I was able to call in a professional on every turn, I mean, maybe I'm not good at magic. I need some professional advice. I'll call in a professional every turn. Seems good. Alright, that moves us on to... Sometimes you really need a specific professional. And you need someone specific for the job. So why not a professional face breaker? For 3 mana, a 2/3 human warrior with menace. Whenever one or more creatures you control deal combat damage to a player, create a treasure token. Yeah. Sacrifice a treasure and you exile the top card of your library, and you may play that card this turn. So this card is good at getting the money you're owed, and it's good at being able to use that money and put it to good use. Alright. I like. Alright, next card is Pyre Sledge Arsonist. Very specific. 3 mana 2/2 Viashino. So it's been a while since we've seen one of those. Shaman. A 1 mana tap it, and this deals X damage to any target. X being the number of permanents that you have sacrificed this turn. Okay, that combos well with treasures. I already see the combination here because treasures are permanents. So you keep shaking down people for the treasure, and then you sacrifice a bunch, and then this deals a bunch of damage. And this is also really good too because your opponent, if they're playing Streets of New Capenna, may be destroying your stuff and giving you money in exchange for it, like making your cards disappear, or doing something along those lines of, I think maybe I countered your spell, it didn't happen, here's your bribe. We've already seen a lot of spells where your opponents may also be incentivized to give you treasures. What better way of stopping them from really wanting to do that when they see that you have a card that can put those treasures to better use than maybe they anticipated. Next, we rob the archives. 2 mana sorcery with casualty 1. Exile the top 2 cards of your library, and you may play those cards this turn. For 2 mana, you're exiling, if you sacrifice a 1/1, exiling 4 cards, which is good. Don't play a land if you know you're going to play this card. That always makes me sad. Play the land that you probably just got done exiling. And then for 4 cards, exiling from the top card of your library. Either all 4 were lands and you just got yourself lucky for your next turn, or odds are there's 1 or 2 of those that are really good. Especially creatures you can get right back out on the battlefield, or enchantments that'll help improve your board state. Alright, and our last red card to go over is, very unfortunate for them, an Unlucky Witness. 1 mana, 1/1, human citizen, just going about their day, that when they die, because they were unlucky and witnessed something that they needed to not see, you can exile top 2 cards of your library. Until your next end step, you may play one of those cards. So 1 mana, 1/1, that if he dies, which you're going to incentivize that happen, put him in the wrong place at the wrong time, and then that benefits you. So I can see this as being, you found out that one of your guys has seen something that they shouldn't have seen, and another family is like, look, we can't let that happen. He saw a deal that you and I just did together. Have him go down to this alleyway. We'll make it quick, and you can call in a few favors. I like it. Very red. So next up, we go to green. We start with Evolving Door. 3 mana artifact. For 1 mana, tap it and sacrifice a creature. Count the colors of the sacrificed creature. Then search your library for a creature card that's exactly that many colors, +1. Exile that card, and then shuffle. You may cast the exiled card, and you can only activate this ability as a sorcery. I like that. You keep sacrificing little tokens that you're making, because remember, green is heavy cabaret. That's the one where you're creating a bunch of tokens. So sacrifice, find out what color it is, pull out one that's 2 colors. Sacrifice that 2 color and upgrade it to a 3 color. Cabaret are 3 colors, so you can pull out the head of the family at some point with that. So that's pretty good. Next, we have a Fight Rigging. For 3 mana as an enchantment, you got Hideaway 5, because at some point you're gonna go into a fight. You're gonna know you're about to go into a fight. You shouldn't. So you've got the Hideaway card, your stash, that gets you out of the business when it gets too much. At the beginning of combat on your turn, you put a +1/+1 counter on target creature you control. Then, if you control a creature with power 7 or greater, you may play the exiled card without paying its mana cost. It's time to get out of the business. I like it. And you definitely rigged that fight. Next is Luxurious Libation. A 1 green mana, X amount of any color. And you can see here that they've got cups full of Halo. It is an instant that target creature gets +X/+X until the end of the turn, and you create a 1/1 green and white human citizen creature token. So you've got a little guy that you've let join in on the party, and one of your creatures just got buffed up by however much you had, X mana. You drank up all the halo. The next card is very interesting in art, is Topiary Stomper. It is a 3 mana card, 2 green, 1 of any color, Plant Dinosaur. It is a 4/4 with Vigilance that whenever this enters the battlefield, you search the library for a basic land card, put it onto the battlefield tapped, and then shuffle. It cannot attack or block unless you control 7 or more lands. 4/4 Vigilance for 3 mana is pretty good, and it immediately does let you get 1 land on the board. Maybe that's the 7th one that you need. I don't know, it's better to play this on turn 3 though, it's just you can't attack with it until, I guess, thanks to its ability, probably turn 6. But it is in green, and green's very good at getting lands out when you shouldn't have lands out, so, you know, odds are you still can get this out on turn 3 if you're playing green the way green is meant to be played. So, I can see this working, and it's nice to have a giant hedge that has been trimmed into the shape of a T-Rex, and then now it's stomping through the streets of New Capenna. You know, we're all going on this journey together, and sometimes a dinosaur needs to go on that same journey. You know, we're all getting there. Alright, that does it for green. That moves us to multicolored. We start with Avon Heartstabber, a 2 mana, 1 blue, 1 black, 1/1 bird assassin. So it has flying, it is a bird. As long as there are 5 or more mana values among cards in your graveyard, this gets +2/+2 in death touch, and when this card dies, you mill 2 cards and draw a card. That seems good. A 2 mana 3/3 flying death touch would be pretty good. And when this thing dies, you mill 2 cards, which should be good in the blue-black deck that you're building. It looks like at this point, and you get to draw a card. That's pretty good, especially if you're building a mill deck. I can see that going well. It's a shame that it's a bird assassin. It's not. If this card gets milled, my issue is if this card gets milled, not really great. It's kind of only good if you play it. So, all right. So next we have the Black Market Tycoon for 2 mana, 1 green, 1 red, a 2/2 cat rogue. That at the beginning of your upkeep, Black Market Tycoon deals 2 damage to you for each treasure that you control, but you can tap them to create a treasure token. So you definitely want to deal with those treasures and spend them as soon as you can. You can only hold on to them for so long before he gets caught. It's riskier the longer you hold on to them, so you want to make it move quickly. But I can definitely see it work well since it has red in its color. Definitely works well with that red card we saw earlier where you can sacrifice all your treasure tokens, which creates you a ton of mana. You're probably going to use that to pay for a great spell, but you're also tapping 1 mana, tapping that card we talked about earlier, and dealing X damage to the target you're choosing, X being the number of treasures you just sacrificed. So, pretty good. Next, we move on to an equipment, Ceremonial Groundbreaker, a 3 mana, 1 green, 1 white. That equipped creature gets +2/+1 and has trample. If you equip it to a citizen, it's only 1 mana, but otherwise, it's 3 mana. Okay, not a lot of citizens that I've seen for green, but there is, well, no, that's not true. We have Cabaretti, and the white has the angels that synergize with the citizens. I walked that back. This is a pretty good card. So it's nice to see more synergy with citizens. It reminds me of the Ancestral Katana from Kamigawa, where it's cheaper when you equip it to the correct card. And it's very ceremonial because it's like, oh, your citizen's probably 1/1, but here you go, here's a little weapon. You can have trample, whatever, but maybe you're buffing up those cards you've got. And with your head of the Cabaretti family especially, then you're buffing up all your creatures. They get +9, plus a first strike, vision, and a trample, I believe, if you have 9 or more creatures. So sure, it is just a 1/1 citizen. Or is it now an 11/2 with trample, first strike, and vigilance? Who knows? Who knows? It's just a ceremonial groundbreaker. So, I like that. Next, we move to Cormula the Glamour Thief, a 4 mana, 1 blue, 1 black, 1 red. Vampire Rogue is a legendary creature, definitely belongs in the Maestro family. A 2/4 with haste, tap 1 mana, tap her, add 1 blue, 1 black, 1 red to your mana pool, but you must spend this mana only to cast instant and or sorcery spells. When this creature dies, return up to 1 target instant or sorcery card from your graveyard to your hand. Alright, nice. So she generates mana that she shouldn't be able to generate. It's just more of a, I procured this thing real fast. And a 4 mana 2/4 with haste isn't great. It's the ability that matters, really. So I can see this working well with the Maestro family. Next, we have the Corpse Appraiser, because everything has a value in Streets of New Capenna. 3 mana, 1 blue, 1 black, 1 red. Once again, Maestros. A 3/3 vampire rogue. When it enters the battlefield, you exile up to 1 target creature card from your graveyard, and if a card is put into exile this way, you look at the top 3 cards of your library and put 1 of them into your hand and the rest into your graveyard. Alright, so this is a thing of like, I'm going to get this corpse to the right person, and that person's going to pay the right price. Everything has a price in Streets of New Capenna, and everything is valuable, dead or alive. And for the Maestros, maybe more so dead than alive. Alright, next we move on to Evelyn the Covetous. A 4 mana, 2 of any color, 1 that must be blue or black, 1 that must be black, 1 that must be black or red. Maestro family. A 2/5 vampire rogue, legendary creature, she has flash, and whenever she or another vampire enters the battlefield under your control, you exile the top card of each player's library with a collection counter on it. Once each turn, you may play a card from exile with a collection counter on it if it was exiled by an ability you control. And you may spend mana as though it were any color to cast it. So, she covets everything. Everyone's stuff. This is really good in Commander, more specifically in Commander. But this is good in 1v1 also. Your own cards that are being exiled are worth something, but it's always better to play a card that didn't take up space in your own deck. Because in a way, your opponents paid for that for you. Next we have exotic pets, which of course they would have. It is 1 of any color, 1 white, 1 blue. It is an instant that creates you 2 1/1 blue fish creature tokens, each one of them that cannot be blocked, and then for each kind of counter among creatures you control, you put a counter of that kind on each of these tokens. So these little 1/1 fishies are being fed certain things, and whatever it is you're feeding them seems to be affecting them. They are exotic and you don't quite understand why, but you'll use that to your favor as well. Maybe feed them some Halo, who knows. Next we have the Forge Boss. 4 mana, 1 black, 1 red, 3/4 human warrior. Whenever you sacrifice 1 or more other creatures, Forge Boss deals 2 damage to each opponent, and this ability triggers only once each turn. And this fits in the Maestro family, and also I think fits in the Riveteer family. I think this is the right color scheme, because only 1 black, 1 red, and I think that they are just one of the other colors. Or is this Obscura? I think it's red makes it. I think red makes it the Riveteers, and he's dressed like a Riveteer anyways. So I definitely think that he's meant thematically to go with the Riveteers, but it's nice that he, for the right price, could work for the Maestros as well. He kind of has that vampire mysterious thing going for him. So, sacrificing a creature has a benefit. Next we have a hostile takeover. 5 mana, 1 blue, 1 black, 1 red, sorcery. Up to 1 target creature has base power and toughness 1/1 until the end of the turn. And up to 1 other target creature has a base power and toughness 4/4 until the end of the turn. And then hostile takeover deals 3 damage to each creature. So, you're gonna turn one of your little guys, like I imagine this being like a lieutenant, but even better, it's a citizen. So 1/1, no, it's a 4/4. He's feeling a little big for his britches. He steps up to the plate, and he takes down the, like I picture a head of the family is being taken down a peg. And everyone's just like, yeah, I think we're going to take over now. But really, thematically, what this is definitely supposed to be is Ob Nixilis coming in. The mysterious one trying to start up a family, the 6th family, that no one's talking about. That's the hostile takeover. And you can see that he's looking out the window, and he's on a skyscraper overlooking the entire city. And you can kind of make out his reflection, and you can see his demon horns, where he's got some plans where he's the one he's helping that citizen. So it's more of it's not them stepping up to the plate so much as it's him whispering in their ear. Don't you think you could take over that family? And what's really good is that it's until end of turn. So you can absolutely use this to buff up one of your opponent's 1/1 citizens and then weaken their family head to a 1/1, wipe out everything on their board, and then all that's left is a 1/1 at the end of the turn, because it's a 4/4 only until the end of the turn. It becomes a 1/1 citizen right at the end. It's like, yeah, how'd that work out for you? So it's really good that you can picture Ob Nixilis really being behind the scenes here. Alright, so next we already saw the Broker's Ascendancy at the beginning here. Now we talk about the Maestro's Ascendancy. This is a 3 mana, 1 of each color for the Maestro family, enchantment. Only during each of your turns, you may cast an instant or a sorcery spell from your graveyard by sacrificing a creature in addition to paying its other costs. And if a spell cast this way would be put into your graveyard, you exile it instead. So it's a one-off. It's like, okay, I played a spell, but we're going to pull it right back out again. So you thought you were done. You thought that's all we had, but we've got something else. So it works really well for the maestros. I'll admit this doesn't seem to be as exciting as the Broker's Ascendancy. I can absolutely see why they led with that card, where you're adding loyalty to each of your planeswalkers in addition to giving +1/+1 counters to everybody else. But this card definitely fits with the maestros. Next is a Maestro's Diabolist, a 3-mana 1/4 vampire warrior with death touch and haste, and whenever it attacks, if you don't control a devil token, create an attacking 1/1 red devil creature token with the ability that when this creature dies, it deals 1 damage to any target, which is what the devil tokens always do. So this is just another way of you being able to have a creature, and it's something you probably want to sacrifice, and the maestros are all about sacrificing creatures, and the more creatures you sacrifice, the more you're buffing up other cards. So you can definitely tell here that everything maybe even has more value dead than they do alive. Like, everything is just like, when I die, I'm doing this cool thing. And the maestro's like, oh, we don't want you to die. If you could just, like, go over here to this alleyway real fast. Like, it definitely is like, yeah, you're here to die. Which would make sense, because vampires are essentially undead. So it's like, you know, you have to die to become stronger. Next, we have the Metropolis Angel. And the art in this card looks amazing. It's a 4-mana, 1 blue, 1 white, 3/1 Angel Soldier with flying. And whenever you attack with 1 or more creatures with counters on them, draw a card. That's really nice. It's really good. It really meshes well with cards that let you draw a second time on your turn. So I definitely see this working well. And also, I haven't pointed this out lore-wise, but it is nice to see that there are angels out and about that are not all trapped under the city being mined for their halo. Because that's pretty depressing as heck. It's nice to see some of the angels, and honestly it makes me wonder if maybe the angels, even if they're spread out amongst the different families, maybe there's some sort of plan to take the city back. Alright, so next we have the Nimble Larcenist, a 3-mana bird rogue, 1 blue, 1 white, 1 black, a 2/1 with flying that whenever it enters the battlefield, target opponent reveals their hand, and you choose an artifact, instant, or sorcery card from it, and exile that card. Very fitting, and definitely an Obscura way to go about things. Definitely trying to control the information and resources at the other family's disposal. Let's talk about the Obscura Ascendancy, a 3-mana, 1 of each of their colors, enchantment. Whenever you cast a spell, if its mana value is equal to 1 plus the number of soul counters that are on this card, put a soul counter on this card, and create a 2/2 white spirit creature token flying. So long as there are 5 or more soul counters on this card, spirits you control get +3/+3. Well, I think we already kind of thought the Obscura were kind of going down the spirit route. But I'd say with an enchantment like this, you're now going the spirit route. So this definitely combos well with anything standard-wise that have spirits. But I can also picture this going really well in Commander, where they're much better at flooding the board anyways. So now every spirit gets +3/+3. That's absolutely insane. Next, we talk about Obscura Interceptor, a 4-mana card, 1 of each of the Obscura family colors, 3/1 with flash and lifelink, Cephalid Wizard, that whenever this enters the battlefield, it connives. When it connives this way, return up to 1 target spell to its owner's hand. Spell! This is amazing for Obscura, because Obscura are already pretty good, and heck, so are the spirits, really, because you've got flash spirits that also let you, like the spell queller, whatever it's called, where it comes in with flash, and you take a spell off the stack and put it under the card, so it's been countered, essentially. This card is really good because it has flash, so it's flashing in, you connive immediately, and it's like, oh, that's right, you were, I forgot, you were trying to do a board wipe. Oh, actually, you know what? Then we're going to counter that spell. So it's really good if you play it. Obscura seems to be maybe that they're going to go the same route that spirits typically go, which is that their turn is better played when you think it's your turn. You thought you were taking your turn. I'm just going to real quick go ahead and correct that mistake. So I like that. We're all sharing here. Next is Quasar, Augur of Agonies, a 4-mana Obscura card because it has 1 of each of the Obscura family colors. 3/4 legendary Cephalid Advisor that whenever you draw a card, target opponent loses a life and you gain a life. Okay, definitely has to combo with all these draw cards, but there's a ton of blue cards that were comboing off that, and black cards that were comboing off that. So this definitely fits in really well. Hopefully it doesn't slow down your deck, though. You really need to keep drawing cards. The more you draw, the better it is. Kind of makes me feel like it reminds me of, and this wouldn't be legal in standard, but makes me think of Peer into the Abyss, which is a black mana card where you draw half your deck, or a target player does. You just choose yourself as a target, and then you deal 1 damage to an opponent for each of those cards you drew, and it's for each card you draw. So upon each card that you're drawing, it triggers, and you can choose different targets if you need to split it up. But you're always the target for life gain, so you're gaining all that life. That's pretty good. I think this is better in Commander, but it's really good. Alright, next is Security Rocks. A 4 mana, 1 green, 1 red, 5/4. So it definitely can work for the Riveteers, and it can work for the Cabaretti. What honestly it looks like from the art in this card, before I look into it too deep, definitely I get the vibe that he is security. I definitely think that he is security for the Cabaretti, but I also think that he's from the Riveteers. I think the Cabaretti hired out someone from the Riveteer family to come out and guard the party. So he's a 4 mana 5/4 that when you may pay 1 red, 1 green, rather than pay the spell's mana cost. But you spend only mana produced by treasures to cast it this way. So he can be bought for cheaper. The Riveteers are fine with that, but you've got to give him some pure gold for that. I like that. It's pretty thematic for the Riveteers, I think. For the right price, you can get security at a discount. Next, we talk about Shattered Seraph, a 7 mana, 1 white, 1 blue, 1 black, 4/4 Angel Rogue with flying that when it enters the battlefield, you gain 3 life. And if you pay 2 mana and you exile this from your hand, target land gains the ability that it can tap for 1 of each of the color, 1 blue, 1 white, or 1 black, until this has been cast from exile, and you may cast this from exile for as long as it remains exiled. So you can turn a land for 2 mana, 2 of any color. You can turn a land into all the colors you need until you can finally pull that color, at which point it's like, oh, thank God. Okay, I have that color. I'm now going to cast Seraph from exile. It's a 4/4 flying, and I gain 3 life. Yeah, that's really good. I think this is really good for Commander, but this is good for, I can see it being good in Standard and Modern. It's just really high mana cost. Next is the Snooping Newsy, sorry. A 2 mana, 1 blue, 1 black, 2/2 human rogue that when it enters the battlefield, you do mill 2 cards. But as long as there are 5 or more mana values among cards in your graveyard, this gets +1/+1 in lifelink. So it's a 2 mana 3/3 with lifelink. That's not bad. And also it mills, which is usually a downside, but I'm thinking this is going to be an upside. This is, I'm milling myself. Oh, darn it, I got to mill myself. Darn it. Oh, that's right, all my cards are buffed. My bad. Like, it's just really good. It's a great way to get high mana value cards into your graveyard without having to have played them. Next, we have Tainted Indulgence. I was wondering if a family was going to poison Halo, but since everyone's drinking anyways, you just kind of saw that happening. At some point, a family was going to poison some other family's supply of Halo. So no one's going to think twice about drinking Halo, because at the point where you're drinking Halo, you're overindulging and you're probably drunk or whatever. So it's 1 blue, 1 black, instant. Draw 2 cards and then discard a card unless there are 5 or more mana value among cards in your graveyard. So it could be just a 2 mana draw 2. If not, you do have to discard a card from your hand. So that's pretty good. And the card you discard might be one you can play from the graveyard, but that's more of a Maestro thing. And since this is a blue-black, not really seeing Maestro synergy here. This is more, I can picture being Obscura situation here. But I like it. Next we have Toulouse, Clever Conductor. A 3 mana can be either blue-white, the next one has to be blue, and the other one can either be blue-black. It is a 3/1 legendary human rogue that when it enters the battlefield it connives. And whenever you discard 1 or more cards, which you'll do when you connive, you exile them from your graveyard. And when this card dies, you put cards that have been exiled that way back to your hand. So yeah, you're discarding them for now. And then every time you connive while this is on your board, all your other creatures that connive, the one downside being that you have to discard, is no longer a downside. That's really good. Next we have Unleash the Inferno, which is a 4 mana, 1 black, 1 red, 1 green, so Riveteer. Instant. Unleash the Inferno deals 7 damage to our creature or planeswalker, and when it deals excess damage this way, destroy target artifact or enchantment an opponent controls with a mana value that's less than or equal to the amount of excess damage. So you could deal this to a citizen if you really just need to destroy a 6 mana or less enchantment or artifact. If not, then this could be a 7 damage, like you're killing whatever it is you want to kill, including a planeswalker. That's pretty good. Next, we have one that I'm really excited about. This is very mage heavy, and I'm a mage guy. This is Void Rend, a 3-mana 1 white 1 blue 1 black instant. This spell cannot be countered. Destroy target non-land permanent. Yeah, that's really good. I like that a lot. I don't think there's much more to say on that. That moves us to the artifacts. Alright, so the first artifact is one that was sneak peeked over the weekend. Luxior Gaida's Gift. This is the one that was given to Elspeth when she got here, when she was in a tough situation. She got a sword that was infused with Halo. So this is a 1-mana equipment legendary artifact. It's a mythic rare, where the equipped creature gets +1/+1 for each counter that's on it. Seems good, right? Or, if the equipped permanent isn't a planeswalker and is a creature in addition, the equipped permanent is not a planeswalker, and it is a creature in addition to its other types. So you're meant to equip this to a planeswalker. Pay 1 mana to get this equipment out, pay 1 mana to equip it to a planeswalker, or 3 mana to equip it to anything. So you can still activate the loyalty abilities, which gives it a loyalty counter. And those are counters. The equipped creature gets a +1/+1 for each counter that's on it. And this planeswalker becomes a creature. I mean, you just turned its loyalty into a threat. I mean, that's insane. Like, oh yeah, I'm saving up for this really cool ability for later, but while I'm doing that, might I also interest you in a 10/10 swinging your way real fast? Like, or, oh, you wanted to attack my planeswalker and destroy it before I could use my cool ability? You can do that, but it's a 7/7, so your creature's dying. Like, you're not just getting free damage in on my planeswalker anymore. That's awesome. Alright, so we're going to go ahead and move over to the lands and see if they had any other lands that they introduced. I know of one for sure, which is a Maestros Theater, which is a non-basic land that when it enters the battlefield, you have to sacrifice it. But when you do, you search the library for a basic island, swamp, or mountain card. You put it on the battlefield tapped, shuffle your library, and gain a life. So that's pretty good. It's a nice way to be able to pull out a land that you need. Then you also have the Obscura Storefront. I don't know why I said Stormfront. Obscura Storefront. That when it enters the battlefield, sacrifice it, and you're searching for the Obscura lands, and then you gain a life at the end of that. And we also had one for each of the families. We had the or not. We just had those two so far. I would assume we have one coming out for each of the families though, but those are the ones that they have shown us that are for those families. I think we also saw one earlier in the week that was related to another one of the families, but those are the two that are pulling out the lands that you need for those families for the lands, and everything else is going to be revealed over the course of the next couple days. So those are my reactions to each of these cards. You tell me what you thought. Drop a comment down below. Like and subscribe to us, and we'll keep you updated on any cards as they come out. So get excited. Go on this journey with me on the Streets of New Capenna, and I'll see you next time.